Welcome to Skin and Soul. I'm Gwenm Carsley, a transformational body, sex, and soul coach, and I'm inviting you on a bold, unfiltered journey into the heart of our humanity through the lens of Eros. This is where we strip away the shame, dive into the unspoken, and embrace the wild, raw truth of our desires. Together, we'll crack open the taboo, uncover our deepest intimacies, and awaken the pulse of our sexual essence. Because real transformation, it's messy, it's thrilling, and it's oh so delicious. Buckle up, loves. Skin and Soul Beyond the Pale starts in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hi, I'm Gwenm. I'm your host of Skin and Soul on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm also a body, sex, and soul coach and the creator of Vulvology. And today I have a super special guest on. I'm so excited. I keep thinking I'm going to forget his name. That's how excited I am. Jamie is a world-renowned British artist who pushes the edges, dismantling shame around our bodies, one cast at a time. His work exposes what culture hides, challenging the way we see sex, identity, and the human body. Best known for the Great Wall of Vulva, which as of recently was changed from the Great Wall of Vagina. It is a monumental 400 real vulvas cast and displayed unapologetically. His art is often socio-political, cultural, personal, but always profoundly human. He doesn't just provoke, he invites us to witness the body as truth and beautiful. So I want to welcome you. I'm so excited to have you here. Honestly, I hunted this man down.
Thank you so much for that glowing introduction. I have to live up to it now. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
So I'm sure everybody's wondering, like, what? He does what and for how long? So I know you've been doing this work for 30 years or more. And I guess it's like the first question would be like, what sparks anybody to start casting a vulva?
That's a good question. I mean, it's there, right? So I learned to make body casts when I was working in special effects in the film industry. And, you know, when you are kind of doing this, you tend to use whichever partner you're with as a guinea pig as you try different techniques and try to get good at something. And of course, you know, if it's your romantic partner, then your casting is going to go south at some point. There's no getting around it. So yeah, long-suffering partners, that's how it started.
So did she have is she your first that did like, I don't know, 100 casts of the same one, or?
No, but it was a good opportunity to practice without, you know, making a mess of it and sort of preparing myself for dealing with the public, which is a whole different thing altogether. So.
Well, and then, so what made you go from, oh, this is a fun idea, and I don't know if it was just like, oh, this is a fun erotic idea, let's play with casts and stuff, and then moving it into, oh, wow, this would be, was it a discussion of, oh God, nobody's doing this, or she said, oh, is that what I look like, or?
No, to be honest, it was sort of kind of a bit of an accident. When I was escaping from the film industry, I set up a small body casting business to try to earn a buck while I kind of get on with my other crazy work. And, you know, I did start getting, you know, requests for people to cast their genitals, and because I was just advertising anywhere. And that seemed to be something people wanted. It was breasts, bums, genitals. I'm like, okay, whatever, that's cool. And then this journalist friend of mine got hold of it and decided to do a story about how this was the latest thing, which it wasn't, but it kind of, you know, it was good. And then she became a researcher for a sex museum that wanted to do all the genitals. And they were going to do it photographically. But then she said, hey, why don't you get Jamie to do it with casting? So to be honest, that's kind of how this started. I didn't set up to make a wall of genitals. I was just like, well, I need the money, so let's go. And then I realized how difficult that was going to be. I was like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so how difficult was it getting people to literally open up?
I didn't even know where to start. You know, to begin with, I just sort of asked everybody I knew, and they're like, no. So I'm like, so I spoke to some friends, and one of my friends was really big into the fetish scene. And he's like, oh, people at fetish clubs will do it, no problem, come along. So I took that step and went to this fetish club in London, and I saw things that I'll never be able to unsee.
Mhm.
It was quite an eye opener, and but that's where I found my first models. People were cool, I have to say, really cool, and they were very clear about what they would do, what they wouldn't, and it was really easy. And kind of word of mouth kind of led to the first load of casts. Lots of couples came because for this piece I needed penises and vulvas, so it was really useful for couples to come along and do it together.
Wow. And so I've seen, I love, it's the spice of life, right?
Yeah,
That,
yeah, the
but
idea
that
of
ended up being
variety.
just gorgeous. Yeah. And just wondering like whether the men, like, did the women like it respond better, or did the men respond better? Or was there just an equal kind of like, yeah,
Oh, you mean when I asked them, or um, it's an interesting question. Yeah, it was quite a long time ago now. I'm thinking back; it's nearly 20 years. So I think, to be honest, it was pretty equal. I think, in the fetish community, there seems to be uh, an enormous amount of equality. Actually, it's almost like people have. There's so much respect for boundaries that I discovered there that it was the opposite of what I was expecting. So, to be honest, I think uh, everybody felt empowered to just say whatever they felt, and it was often the women who were driving it as much as the men. And I
Mhm.
needed them there because I needed fluffers, because I needed to cast directions, and I wasn't going to help. So yeah, it was the whole thing was a really good experience, I have to say.
So what was your view of like before when you first started versus now? Because I know now it's been over 20 years doing this at least. Yeah, it's 20 years, right? 2006 is when it went up. So
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how I was going to cast a penis or an erection, or So, uh, obviously, you kind of learn on the job. So now it's like there's nothing that I can't make a cast of. But at that point, I was kind of new, to be honest, and it was a little bit terrifying getting the first people in who weren't people that I knew, because it was, I found it quite anxious, and I had no real training in how to deal with this. So I had to come up with my own protocols and my own way to keep everyone safe. And so, but to begin with, it felt a bit clunky, but it soon just became routine, to be honest. And it was from doing that that the Great Wall of Vagina, now Vulva, came about, because the women coming to be cast were going, I wish mine looked like that one, because they were looking at casts of other people. And I was going, why do you want yours to look? What's wrong with, what do you mean? What's wrong with that? Why is this one so good? And, and the women were saying, oh, well, this one hasn't got any frilly bits or whatever, or, it's so neat and tidy, whatever the hell. And I was just like, I had no idea that that is what a lot of people had in their mind of what they should look like. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So that was the kind of instigation, because I also cast my own penis for this piece. It was just one less dick I had to handle, which was fine. It was really hard to cast my own erection, let me tell you. In the end, having failed 3 or 4 times, I had to ask 3 friends to help me. And it's just like, oh God.
that's awesome.
So I suffered for my art. You know, now it's your turn. That's the way I see
Suffered for the art. Absolutely. You
it.
know what? It's and I said it before, is that I've said it to you many times now, that this work to me is so invaluable, because I know from my own body, and I don't know what my body looked like pre-birth, and like just like going from young and going through hormonal stages. But what I do know is like at some point I was like like had this deep fear, and I had been with a woman for so long. I guess I never questioned that, like leaving that relationship and coming back out into the world, and actually questioning myself in front of men. Like I'm like, oh my God, is this normal? Is this, and I was horrified at my own just being able to look at myself, and I thought, oh my God, what did I look like before? Is this normal? And I'm realizing today how much how women really bash themselves in what, not
Mm,
just like there's the body dysmorphia, and then there's also this genitalia dysmorphia, which brings in the labiaplasty, the vaginoplasty, and just like reconstructive surgery. We were there. So I'm I love this because for my own self, I'm like, it's a mission where I'm like, I'm loving my yoni, I'm loving my vulva. And I'm actually like claiming the word vulva because I also called it vagina for God knows how long. Like there was so little
Everyone did.
research. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone, vagina was common parlance, and it probably still is for most people. But if this piece is going to be educational, then we need to change the word, change the title to reflect the way the language is moving on. So,
Yeah.
but so the weird thing, yeah. So I mean, I was saying, I cast myself,
Mhm.
and for the first time in my life, was actually able to compare my penis to 17 other guys. Now, I'd only ever really seen pornography penises before. And I was like, mine doesn't really look like that. And I felt, inadequate. And that I carried that with me my whole life till I was in my 40s. And then I did this project and I'm like, oh God, I'm like totally friggin' normal.
Mhm.
Because in that spectrum of a very small survey of men, I was just like, oh. And that's when I realized that, this has changed the way I felt about myself. I never was anxious again after doing this project. And I was like, all these women are describing to me the similar anxiety. I'm like, well, I'll just go cast a load of vulvas then. It's going to do the same thing. So when people say to me, well, why does a guy do it? I'm like, because I could relate to genital anxiety. And I was able to do it. I had the tools, I had the skills, I had the ability. So I just got on with it. I didn't really think about it. I just got on with it.
And you find so and I was gonna, burying the lead here, but I'm just gonna bring it out that I got to do this process of casting my vulva. So we're gonna cut soon so everybody's imagination can go. But I'm wondering in terms of in your experience, if any story that really touched you or somebody who really awakened to their own beauty.
There's so many stories. I have to say, one of the lovely things about doing this work is the intimate conversations that you have with people, because there's no bullshit when you're kind of lying there with your legs apart. It's a very strong connection that I build with the people that I'm working with, and so many people were coming for all sorts of reasons, some really personal ones, some as they describe in the book, one woman had been raped and wanted to use this opportunity to sort of do something with her vagina or vulva that she wanted to do. I mean, that's really powerful stuff. Other people with so much anxiety about their genitals and their appearance is that they took about half an hour before they could open their legs. But for every single participant, it seemed to be a really healing process. Like there was something about this exposure that really made a difference to them. And it was really humbling. I felt like a facilitator in something that is much bigger than I realized when I started. I didn't know what the effect was going to be on the participant. And then when I look at the comments on the webpage for the Great Wall, and I see how many people write about how it's affected them for so many years, because there's people now in their 30s who were teens when they first saw it, and it was transformational for them. And so, yeah, I have to say, I'm astonished. As an artist, you want to do stuff that does things, that changes the world, that brings a sensation to people, and I'm really pleased that that's what happened. I'm just really surprised, to be honest. I didn't know that was going to happen. So, yeah, I can't really single out one particular thing because there were just so many stories.
Okay. Yeah, I would imagine that like people going in and to hear like somebody reclaiming their body after violence, shame. I mean, and I've had the opportunity to see some panels on your wall, so I got to see some of the ones with piercings and uh, definitely seeing my own after, getting to witness a little bit of the process and just going, oh, actually, she's quite pretty, or like in and normal and yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up to a break. Sorry, we're coming up to a break. It's a lot to ingest. So if you're at all interested in Jamie's work, you can look at it at jamiemccartney.com. You can also go check out the Great Wall of Vulva now. So you can look that up as well. And just take a moment to reflect on your own genitalia, whether you've ever taken a mirror to it and really taken a moment to appreciate the beauty of what is naturally there. And we will be right back. And we are back with Jamie McCartney, and we were talking about casting vulvas and genitalia and dismantling the shame and taboo around the human body. So just furthering into questions, I'm just going to ask you, in a world obsessed with porn and performance, how do you see your work countering the fantasy?
That's interesting. Porn is trying to present, genitals in a certain way. And I suppose I'm trying to present genitals without any kind of slant or bias. They're just, I think there's something about having lots and lots of them together that means you can't focus on any one. So that really helps to sort of take away the kind of fetishizing of it. And I think we're curious people by nature. I mean, and sexual curiosity is, drives our behavior a lot. But how often do we get a chance to really stare and look and understand genitals without feeling like like we have to somehow be sexual at the same time? But with my work, there it is. You're in a gallery or whatever, and you really get to satisfy that curiosity. And it's okay not to be turned on, or it's okay to be turned on, but you haven't got to do anything.
I was going to say it's okay either way, right? Like it might be arousing to some. I don't know. I find it kind of like, I'm like, ooh, that's, I don't know. I find it exciting and gorgeous and all of it, just to see and witness it. So I don't find it, arousing, like, oh my God, I'm going to take that whole wall now. But I do feel like that there is an arousing, but like a beautiful aspect of just an appreciation for the body, but it doesn't have to be arousing.
Yeah, I think that it can be whatever you want it to be. But in my experience, it's just a really overwhelming sensation for people. I mean, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. You walk into the museum and there's 400 vulvas there. It's like your brain doesn't even know what to do with that. And so you don't really concentrate on any one. It's just you do for a little bit and then you move on. And it's an active process because it's 8 meters long. It's 26 feet long. So you're walking up and down. It's an artwork that you experience with your whole body. It's really an interesting thing. And so it's almost like you forget to be turned on. I don't know.
How do you experience seeing all of that? Like when you walk in, when you first saw that, just lined up, what was your feeling, reaction around it?
Well, I didn't see it all laid out at all until the day I finished it, until the day I first hung it on the wall. So, even it took me 5 years to make, and I had no idea of the impact because it was all, every cast was just in a box. So when I finally got them all into panels and finally put them on the wall, and there was a group of us, it was astonishing. I think we all felt the same thing, that this was going to be big. I mean, it was such a profound thing. I was just like, wow, this actually works. It's sensational, it's quirky, it's educational, it's so many things, and it's so human. And the fact that like kind of no one ever did it before. I mean, it's really hard to come up with something no one's ever done before. So.
And still, I mean, it's still difficult to find. I mean, I know there's now a library of genitalia that people can take a photograph of themselves and kind of submit to this library. But what you do is profoundly unique. And we were talking earlier around, this isn't the only thing you do, right? There's a lot of other artwork that you bring in, and we're going to talk about that as well, because I think that's important. But I wanted to know, in terms of like your relationship now to the intimacy aspect of it in your own personal life. So just separating your work from your personal life, how does that show up? Do you have like a different relationship experience with a woman's body?
I definitely have a different relationship to my women partners than I had before I started this work. And partly it's about knowing where everything is. That's kind of useful, but it's got a lot more to do with the intimacy between me and the models, where I really began to understand life from the perspective of a woman. So I kind of started to understand much more about women and how they relate to men and all these things, you know, and it was an education. I got to have conversations with 400, well, that was just that piece. It's probably over 1,000 women now that I would never have had. So it's changed my relationship with women on quite an intimate level, but not necessarily just to do with genitals. I think it's more of an understanding because, you know, I was actually listening because I wanted to understand. You know, it wasn't, I never learned anything when I was talking. And I think maybe I used to talk too much, you know. So I think, you know, for me, it's been so profound doing the work that I'm so delighted that I have. And I hope, you know, if we had any of my, you know, more recent relationships there, I hope they would agree that I'm okay these days, that I'm a good guy. And I think that's got a lot to do with this work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to speak personally that you bring so much integrity to working with a model. Like I never felt like at any point like anything that made me feel uncomfortable in any way, you know, even though the legs were up in the stirrups and like I said, want to call you doctor and all of that. And we did internal, I just want to touch on the internal casting a bit because that is such a delicate process and trying to work out a way of doing it consistently so that it's going to research and how important it is. I'm, you know, been told by a lot of male doctors of what exists and what doesn't exist and what I'm supposed to feel and what I'm not supposed to feel. I'm like, thank you for knowing my body better than I do. Yeah. So yeah, and that process, I just want to talk a little bit around how you got to doing the inside the vaginal canal, because that is a wow to do.
Yeah, I have to say, you know, it was just, you know, the material that I use is what dentists use inside the mouth. And so it was almost sort of like a no-brainer that, you know, well, where else can where else can we make a mold? You know, it's like, oh, we've done ears, we've done mouths, we've done that, you know, so it's kind of like, all right. And you know, I was dating someone who was pretty kinky at the time, and she's like, come on, let's just do it. Let's see what I'm like, okay. And you know, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, thank God for my, you know, long-suffering partners who are just as enthusiastic as me. Because the thing about, you know, the vagina, it's completely hidden. Yeah, women have no idea what's going on out there. You know, so
No.
you know, in a way, it was a sort of way of making the invisible visible. And so that first one that I did, I found a way to do it, and it worked. And we were both like, wow, this is not a penis in reverse. This isn't even a tube. This is not what you see in diagrams. And no one had ever seen this view before. And again, as an artist, that's like, wow. That's because my degree was experimental art. So you got to understand, experimental work is what I do. So this was like, wow, let's do more. And it just then realized that the comparison with the inside was just between different women was just as profound as the outside, just as profound. I mean, of course it would be. It's just like faces. We're all different, variations on a theme. But, you know, a lot of women have described to me now, oh God, I get it. You know, I've been shamed for being too small. Like I'm not turned on because I can't fit this huge dick in it. Or I've been shamed because my vagina is too loose or whatever. And then seeing that there is just this huge variation, I think is just as helpful to people as it's been described. And yeah, there's this evolutionary biologist in the States wants to collaborate with me on a scientific paper around this, which to me is very exciting. It's like, yeah, I am doing stuff which no one else has done. And it's got really interesting scientific as well as artistic value. So I'm a science geek, so this really pleases me.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking about like when I was lying there talking about how doctors, you know, whether how often doctors are skewed in terms of their opinions around bodies. Like I thought, I mean, I think I said to you, I'm like, I don't know, am I abnormal? Am I, you know, I just had this idea that I was like, you know, a wasteland inside for a long time because I ended up doing a vaginoplasty, and we'll say here that I ended up doing labiaplasty on the premise that of, oh yeah, it's a good idea. Like I actually had a doctor say to me like, oh well, you know, I feel more confident with that than your breast than your breast. And I was like, okay. So you know, and I don't regret doing what I did, but I do wish that, you know, one thing I want to say to women is to really to take, you're changing your body, and you have no idea what nerves you're cutting off. And anybody who claims to know that, oh, don't worry, this won't be affected or that won't be affected. And I'm very grateful I had a very good surgeon, and at the same time was not listened to, and was, in my own, witnessing of my own vulva, I was like terrified, like doing the cast, going, oh my God, like I'm not, it was especially seeing vulvas that had like, longer lips and different shapes. I was really fascinated, because for my own, I had chosen to go in a plastic surgery route, whereas I wish today, and I said this to you before, I wish I did it before, I wish I did an after, I wish I had known this work, just to be able to document it through time, because the value of it is, how do we age, what's normal, what's beautiful. And yeah, so thank you for like giving me that opportunity, at least to experience it, and to be part of, like, if I'm just going to put it out there for anybody who might want to do an internal a molding, right, and how beneficial that is to science, to documentation, because it just doesn't exist out there. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that work. We are going to come right back. I'm sure that's a lot of listening around vulvas. Woo. All right. Hey there, and we are back with British renowned artist Jamie McCartney, and we've been talking about sculpting Venus. So he's been kind enough to bring us some samples for everyone to look at, so just to see the process a little bit. And let's see, I love show and tell. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I love it. And I said to you, like, I find that just it has a Dr. Seuss quality, which really makes me wonder about Dr. Seuss. Right? And the shelves saying, oh, I have an internal shelf. But when you see, they're not, the internal vaginal wall is not like a penis, there's,
Well, look at that.
look at that. It's amazing.
This is, but just so people can understand, this is the reverse shape of the vulva. So it's kind of
Mm,
like the reverse of this. That's a cast. This is almost like the mold. And then this is
yeah.
going inside. So what you have is, this is kind of where the G spot would be. So this is just inside the vagina. And then this dish area here is the location of the cervix, where the uterus sits and intrudes onto the vagina.
Isn't that wild?
Vault. So that's the kind of strangeness that no one, I mean, it's like, who knew? And what's going on with this? I mean, it's like very, very interesting. And
It is, especially, and I was always told there is no such thing as a G spot, right? Like that controversial, which I'm going to say as a woman, yes, yes, the G spot exists, regardless of what gynecologist has said. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this would be cast in glass normally. So what would happen is you'd see through this front face, and so you'd see all this structure here through the front. This, I don't have a glass one to hand, so this doesn't really work as well as the glass one. But here, I'll put that to the one side, and then this is a vulva cast. So this is exactly the same as the Great Wall is made from. So imagine
That's
300,
amazing. And I will just,
399 more.
that's not mine. Just by the way, that's not, right? That's not, no.
It's another, it's a customer, it's so
So,
there. I
and
thought I'd get a show so people
yeah,
could
no,
get.
I love that you're showing this, because I think nobody has an idea of what it is, and to see it, and to see like the whole line of them. Like I said, they're really spectacular, and how some of them have the details of being pierced, and everybody is unique. Every person has this unique imprint. So I do want to get to talking a little bit about your other artwork. So you have some really amazing projects possibly coming up. So I'm just going to let you take the floor.
Well, I suppose, my work takes many different um, sort of angles, really. So there's the kind of socio-political work, and then there's the work that I do for customers that are making sculptures for people. So, and that, for me, I realized that what I do really is all about love. It took me a long time to work that out. But basically, when someone says, can you make a sculpture of my wife or my child, or my father's dying, can you make a sculpture of me shaking his hand? Or, my husband's died, can you make a cast of his face in the mortuary. You know,
Mm.
and then you realize that this is all about people wanting a physical record of the people that they love. And it took me a while to work that out. And I realized that, my whole career has been about facilitating love between people. I mean, what a gift. So I love it. I mean, it's like people come and they say, and sometimes it's erotic and it's fun and it's to do with couples. And other times it's got, it can be anything. And that's, so I just want to get I don't want to get people to get the impression that all I do is genitals. I mean, that's just, I'm not a one-trick pony. I make lots of sculptures. Here's a sculpture. Here's a figure of some nice lady. So I kind of, what else we got here? Any more sculpture going on here? There probably are. I just can't see them. I should have kind of teed up.
I was going to say there's the big flag back there.
Oh, there's the US flag made out of, I don't know, like 350 casts of the end of my penis. So I don't even know why. Sometimes you don't know why until after. And then sometimes after you still don't even know why. All that shit that you read next to artworks in galleries, that was written after, probably by someone else. And it's mostly shit. It's they say writing about art is like dancing about architecture. Just don't bother. Just look at the art because it should be self-explanatory, basically.
Well, yeah, and it comes
through
the channel, right? Like, I mean, I'm just witnessing you as this pure channel. So you do it, not always like, and you've got this glowing purity about you that's like, yeah, I'm just like, I think you said I'm a science geek and I'm an experimental artist and I'm just gonna go for it. And
I don't know what I'm doing. I just do it. And you find out what you're doing by doing it. It's a bit like conversation. We converse and we help crystallize our ideas by having this exchange backwards and forwards. So sometimes I don't really know what I think until I passed it through, a sensible adult's mind, and then I find out because they might go, well, that's crap. And I go, you're right, it's kind of crap. And I think debate is so important. We talked, when you were here about how we don't feel like there's enough debate. People are so polarized in their opinion that we don't get this interested interrogation of other people as a way of getting to the truth. But I think that's what art does. It's a way of getting to the truth. It's another sort of language that one can use to find truth somehow, whatever that is. Does that sound like...
And people are afraid to debate it. And that's what we were saying is that, if you have this polarized opinion, we can't be friends anymore, which is so unfortunate that we can't say what we think without feeling like we're offending the other person so much that it's divisive in an unhealthy way.
Well, I think people often get their opinions from somewhere else and don't really think about them too much. So if you challenge them, if you poke them in it, they get embarrassed. And so their reaction is quite like hostile because they can't actually justify why they might have voted for a particular person. It just sounded like a good idea at the time. Let's not get into politics.
Well, we could. I mean, there's a giant flag with a bunch of penises with 300 plus penises on it, which is, I don't know. I thought it was funny. I was like, yeah, somebody might take that as, I told you, I was like, oh, this might be a positive, received positively.
Well, it is funny. I mean, a lot of my work is working with powerful symbols, right? So working with flags, I also make flags out of hundreds of images of bras, using the color of the bras to make photographs of them to make flags. Flags are powerful symbols. When you start subverting those, you use the power of that flag to give authority to the work. It's the same with a vulva. It's the same. I did a piece about the war in Ukraine. I was in Ukraine and I got these couple of bullets and shrapnel that had wounded a soldier at the front. And I made casts of them. And then I made a vending machine where you kind of put your money in, you get a copy of this bullet that's been through a human, which is a bit of a visceral thing to hold in your hand. And you know the story of it. And the money I collect goes to a charity working in Ukraine right now with children to stop them getting PTSD. So, for me, a lot of my work is it is political, it's socio-political, but it's trying to, more than just moan about things, it's trying to do something positive. So the Great Wall of Vulva is not moaning about labiaplasty. It's like saying, look at all of these and then decide whether you still want it. So it's trying to do a thing. And, collecting money for kids is like doing a thing. And I got other stuff that I'm sort of is kind of rolling at the moment. So I'm trying to do a project about the Holocaust. I'm trying to at Auschwitz, which is given you know there seems to be this kind of rise of anti-Semitism at the moment, because of what's happening, it's making a lot of people very scared. But it doesn't mean that we should kind of forget the Holocaust. It's really important to remember our past, or we're going to repeat it. And so, that's kind of important to me, and it's got personal family value. I'm also collecting sand from every country in the world
That
for
so
another
which
project.
was it
Because
from Saving Private Ryan? Was that it
well,
was from
I took an image from that just to sort of
yeah.
demonstrate. But yeah, this has been going on from before Ryan came about. I've always kind of collected, but now I'm using the public to help me because I will never get to every country in the world. But the idea that within an artwork you have a piece of every single country, because the
Mm.
country is a lot to do with our personal identity. It tends to be the thing that we say first is, where we're from. And sometimes where we're from has disappeared. It's like when I grew up, my grandfather was from Ukraine, but it didn't exist. It was Russia and Poland. So where was I from? And so I think that's really interesting. So that's another thing that I'm working on. So it is about the human condition, how we feel, how we talk about ourselves, what our story is. Yeah, I don't want to go on because I know we're limited
I
in
do want you
time.
to go on because I think coming in, it becomes about, to me, it's soulful, right? To me, it's
Yeah,
soulful.
yeah.
Being able to be affected by it, and because right now I find that in media, whatever is coming out, we're so desensitized by. I mean, children are watching people being mutilated and bullets thrown, and we don't take a moment to pause to see and feel the impact that we have of what we're putting out there. And like you said, most of the time we don't have our own opinion. We're trailblazing on somebody else's opinion, which we haven't even sat with long enough to make commentary on. And so, yeah.
Feeling, we get a feeling, we agree with, because that feeling really disturbs us. A lot of people are disturbed about what's going on, and we want to fix. But I think the really uncomfortable thing that we need to learn to sit with is that there isn't always a fix. Everything's a fudge. It isn't, nothing's black and white. The reality is always in the gray. So as soon as you try to make something black and white, it's so reductive, it's meaningless. But being in the gray means you really have to think. So it's easier just to make things black and white and then stop thinking about it. But I think as an artist, that's what we do. We're constantly in the gray, in the murk, trying to find the truth somewhere in that. And what a gift that is for that to be my lifetime's work.
Yeah. Did you ever think when you started this work, when you decided I'm going to go in and be an artist, where did you think you were headed?
I don't know. I thought I thought it was easy. You make stuff, it goes in a museum. I was like, that obviously, because I only ever really saw art in museums. I mean, I saw it on people's walls. Okay, you make stuff and people buy it. But I just thought that there was this kind of direct route to getting your stuff out in front of the public. And of course, the reality is completely different. So I don't know. And like I say, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not good at anything else really. So I just do it. And it makes
Well,
me happy. It was always my happy place. So, I get to play for a living. So don't shed any tears for me if I can't buy a new Ferrari next year or ever, because I don't need it to make me happy. I'm already happy.
which is huge. You were saying like, oh God, we take ourselves way too seriously. And some of these topics are very serious. Definitely, dealing with the Holocaust and going in, but being able to take all of this with humor is hugely important, which to me is like the biggest gratitude of life, to be able to laugh at oneself and yeah, be alive in it.
Humor is a great way of getting people to, engage with what I'm doing. So, the Great Wall of Vagina was a humorous title about a serious subject, but it doesn't put people off at the first instance. It draws them in. And so I use humor a lot in my work, in the imagery, in the titles, because it's a universal language. It's sort of a smart. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and smile and the world smiles with you. These things are true. So
Mhm. I want to ask you because I know now I'm just looking at this blasting image, and I just want to start to wind this conversation down a little bit, but I want to ask you if there's anything that you want to share with everyone around what you do and what your I know your next projects are. If anybody can help fund a project, get it out there.
Uh-huh. You
Buy
know,
a
I
panel. I know I'm looking forward to a panel and just I think I'm going to put a book at my entranceway that says please leave a comment after leaving my home, right?
would be great. You know, it's interesting for me. I've never had any public funding, so but I've made lots of public artwork. So how does that work? Well, I've got to make lots of work and sell it in order to make these things that are great for the world. So yeah, always looking for funding. So you know, when people buy a sculpture, they're basically helping me create things that you know. I mean, the Great Wall of Vagina, it took me 5 years unpaid. That's probably about £100,000 in time and material. So yeah, look at my work, and if you like it, please buy it. That would be nice.
Yes.
I mean, the Holocaust project needs funding. You know, that's one of the big things, and so I'm kind of in that process now of like talking because I think small parcels of individual funding is more likely than getting you know big parcels. That's kind of how it works. A lot of my work just involves collaboration with the public. You know, it's like you know that photographer that takes pictures of hundreds of people naked in public, called Spencer Tunick. I went and modeled for him because I think it was really important to support other artists, but also for me to get naked for another artist to know how that feels. But he requires the collaboration of hundreds of strangers, and my work does as well. So I'm collecting sand from every country in the world. So if you live in a country in the world, please email me and say I'll send you some sand. Or you know, and you'll see there's quite a lot of projects that require collaboration. Anyone who is a survivor of the Holocaust that is or has a family member you know, or your family, sorry, your family had a member who was survived or was killed. I'm looking for endorsements for what I'm doing, and I really want to speak to people and get their stories. So, you know, this work is all about people, and you know, I love it when people get in touch and say, "Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about your projects," and because it just means everything to me. So please, if my stuff interests you or makes you feel something, please help.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to try to get through these 10 questions. They're based on Bernard Pivot's questionnaire as well as James Lipton. I got it from the Actor Studio. I'm a huge fan, was in the film industry also. And so this is my version for our closing. And answer what you will. What's one truth your body has always known that your mind took years to catch up to?
I, you know, thought about this. I realized that I really can't bear loud noises, can't bear crowds. I hate being confined or held or like it's just it makes me insane. But I felt there was something wrong with me. Like, why can't I be around crowds and loud noises? But now that we're beginning to understand that not everyone's neurotypical, I feel much better about saying, you know what, just please don't confine me, or can I just not be here? It's too loud. And yeah, but it took me, you know, it took me all my life to be able to kind of go, this is me. Can I just be me?
Thank you. Now, what's the most intimate moment you've ever had that had nothing to do with sex?
Well, it had everything to do with death.
Okay.
You know, some people say art is all about sex or death. So when I made a death mask of my father in the mortuary with my mother present, I don't think my mom and my dad and me had been in the same room for, you know, 20 years, 30 years. And it was so intimate touching my father's face in a way that I could never have done when he was alive. And with my mother there, it felt so profound and moving. And for the first time in my life, I really understood what death is and was never frightened of it again. That was intimate touching my dead dad.
Yeah. Um,
You
thank
probably
you.
wanted something more sexy, right? No.
No, I think that is no, I wouldn't want any other answer than that. If you could be remembered for one sensation you gave someone, what would it be?
Yeah. I know that my work creates enormous sensation in people. When I see people visiting the Great Wall of Vulva, and I see them sometimes leaving in tears, but I also get the messages from people saying, I feel normal thanks to you. I don't feel shame about my body thanks to you. That, I mean, great. That's it. I don't need anything else on my tombstone. He made me feel okay about my body. That's fine. That's what I tried to do, and it works. It makes me happy.
And if pleasure were a language, what would your first word be?
More.
I love it. If your erotic life had a title, like a novel or a film, what would it be called?
Ah, my erotic life.
He's like, I don't have an erotic life. I'm an artist. No.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably Jaws. No, I don't know.
That's awesome. Jaws. Okay. What's one thing you've never said out loud, but you wish someone would ask you about?
I'm going to say no one's ever asked me how hard is it to be an artist. Because you just think you're not going to get any sympathy. People think all you do is you get up late and you fuck around in your studio, and people throw money at you. The trucks come and dump money on the door every morning. And no, it's really hard. And I want people to know. I want people to say, how hard is it to be an artist? And I'm going to tell them, because it's hard, man. I had to sacrifice everything. So yeah, sometimes I just want to talk about that, but I've never had. I don't think
I've never had anybody say to me, "Oh, we're going to dump that this image of, oh, you're an actress or whatever, and you must be living this incredible life and in glamour." It was you're going to starve, and what a lot of it was that, and it was just a lot of hustle. So yeah, that's true. Okay.
There's been weeks where my friends have fed me. It's
Yeah.
just the reality. And there's weeks I'm
And
feeding
you took
my
those
friends.
Red Bull cans. So now I know where all of the Red Bull cans came from. But yeah. So, what part of your erotic self are you still afraid to bring to the light?
I don't think there is any. I've been a wild child. I don't mind admitting I was a very naughty boy, because a lot of this was tied up with addiction and all kinds of stuff, and I pretty much inhabited every single erotic fantasy I could think of, and some things I would never want to do again. So I think, to be honest, there's nothing there. And now that I don't do drugs and alcohol, and guess what? My sex life is much better.
Yeah.
Because it just gets in the way. Who knew?
Yeah, but you've done it all though. So, you got to come back and feel the other side of it. So there's that.
I feel sensations in my body I didn't know that I had, because I was constantly dulling them or getting massive sensations from the drinking drugs. So those natural bodily hormones, I didn't know what that was. So I've done it.
Yeah. And what dies in you when you pretend, and what comes alive when you don't?
Everything. Everything. I'm hollowed out if I'm not authentic. For me, authenticity is absolutely key. When my inner life and my outer life are aligned, and that means truth, then I'm a happy bunny. Everything else is crap to me.
Yeah, I think aging definitely brings on that authenticity. Living like I have no room for crap anymore. Okay, and finish this sentence. When I leave this life, I want my skin to remember.
Lying with a partner in one arm and a dog in the other. The answer to most of life's problems is dog. So when you get those two things together, it is the utter contentment of those sensations, the fur, the skin, the love. Woo.
Beautiful.
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. I love that. And one last question. And if the soul had a scent, what does yours smell like today?
Well, today it smelled like fiberglass resin, which wouldn't be very nice. But, maybe, I was out picking blackberries and wild cherries today, and I was out in the woods, and that smell of wild fruits and then the smells of the woods, I think that's how my soul would smell.
Beautiful. With maybe a dash of resin.
A bit of resin, just an after note.
Yeah, good perfume, good cologne. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. This was it went by too fast. I could do this for another hour, so thank you, thank you. I'm going to invite everybody into Moon Letters just to send your stories, your memories, your what you feel is taboo, maybe about your body. And other than that, I will see you next week on Friday at 10 a.m. Thank you for listening to Skin and Soul with me, Gwenm. Join me Fridays at 10 a.m. PST on Transformation Talk Radio. Catch the podcast anytime on your favorite platforms. You can follow me on Instagram @Luvology. Ready to take the next step? Book a compatibility call with me at gwenmcarsley.com.